Who do you think's going to end up stealing the show tonight and coming up bigger?
I hate to say it because I love my man Donovan Mitchell, and I think he's all world, and he's going to be a stud tonight too. But I think Murray's going to have the bigger night. I just think he's on fire right now. His last 3 games, 50, 42, and 50. Game 1 of this series, he had 36 when Donovan Mitchell had 57. The next 2 games, he was relatively pedestrian offensively, but then down 3-1, he said enough of this nonsense and has taken over. The handle is there. The athleticism is there. The drive to the baskets and finishing at the basket is there. And, of course, the three-pointers are there. Remember, he hit 9 of 12 in the last game, and he's just been on a tear. Just absolutely sensational performance. But I also think that he's going to have the better game because he has a better cast of characters to play with. When I look at the Denver Nuggets, I look at a team. I look at a team that's rife with athletes, that's rife with athleticism. You got the Michael Porter Jr.'s of the world. Obviously, the Joker, who's not that athletic, but clearly a very, very skilled player. Of course, you've got Murray and others. These brothers can play. They're young lions who can play, all right? When I look at the Utah Jazz, they just seem to be a team that has Donovan Mitchell and then everybody else. I'm not saying, of course, Mike Conley Jr. can't play. We know he can play. I'm not saying, that Rudy Gobert and others can't play. Of course, they can play. But you just get the impression it's just Donovan Mitchell with everybody else. With the Denver Nuggets, as explosive and surreal as Jamal Murray has been, as sensational as he has been, they just have more weapons. I expect them to win, even though Utah should have won the series. I do, now that it's 3-3, I do expect Denver to close, and I'm kind of rooting for it because I'd rather see Denver. I think Denver has a better chance against the Clippers than Utah, but I just look at Jamal Murray as being the elite of a crew of dudes who can ball. I see Donovan Mitchell with Utah. It's Donovan Mitchell and everybody else, and I don't think that that's going to be enough to offset the onslaught that Jamal Murray is going to throw in their direction tonight.
This is an almost unanswerable question because every time one guy raises his game to an unthinkable height, the other guy tops him. And then the other guy responds. It's been unbelievable. I would say this. All things considered so far, the best player in the playoffs has been Donovan Mitchell. Because I don't want to go to recency bias and just say, oh, my God, these games Jamal Murray have had recently are even better than the amazing games Donovan Mitchell's had. Because we got to go back and count everything. Donovan Mitchell's leading the playoffs in scoring almost 40 points a game. He's leading the playoffs in efficiency, like his PERs. He's better than everyone. And he's done it for a team, you're right, Stephen A., they're undermanned compared to Denver. You know, the Jazz getting Conley, it looked like that's the missing piece. But Conley, he played okay recently, but for a lot of the season, like, boy, that's not Mike Conley. So I agree with you that Jamal Murray has more around him. Also, going into this series, it's like, boy, Jokic is almost an MVP caliber player. You know, they need another guy like that. It's not quite Jamal Murray so far. Oh, no, excuse me. Jamal Murray's better than Jokic right now. He's better than Jokic right now. When you need him most, he's clearly the best player on the team. And Jokic is just about as good as it gets. So they got 2 guys. So I agree with you. They have a better team. Then why was it behind Donovan Mitchell's performance, they were able, the Utah Jazz were able to open up a big series lead? Because of Donovan Mitchell, of course. And so even if Denver wins, if I am forced to guess who will have a better game between the two, I'll say Donovan Mitchell because, Stephen A., he's going to have to do more.
Well, listen, I think he's going to have to do more, but I think ultimately in a 7-game series, this is a brother that has scored over 50 twice, 57 and 51. He's had a 44-point game. He's had 2 30 games. And there was one game, I think it was game 3, which was a blowout win, where he had 20. Donovan Mitchell is a superstar. We get that this brother can simply ball, and he shows up in the postseason time and deserves a boatload of credit for it. But I do believe that ultimately, when you consider the multitude of athletes that have, it's entirely plausible that Coach Malone is going to look at his players and say, excuse me, could you make somebody else beat us? I don't give a damn who it is, whether it's Mike Conley Jr. or somebody else. Let somebody do it. You got Millsap. You got Monte Morris. You got Jamal Murray. You got Jeremy Grant. You've got Plumlee and all of these guys. You even got Gary Harris and these boys, okay, and Michael Porter Jr. You have too many bodies to throw at Utah, where you can ultimately force somebody else to beat you. I think that's the potential of what could transpire in the Game 7. That's why I would go with Murray.
One thing we know real quick. This Game 7, Molly, this Game 7 is one for the record books. It's a first-round Game 7, and this is one for the history books coming up.
Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For live streaming, sports, and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.